welcome back to Horrifically Well Read, Bled, and Said. Today, our guest is someone that, if she did not have her podcast, this would probably not exist right now, and that is the wonderful Stephanie from Books in the Freezer. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Books in the Freezer, I have to say, I'm going to fangirl for a little bit here because I found you on TikTok about going on 2 years ago now, right when I was starting to really get into reading again, because I'm a big reader. I went to college, both graduate and undergrad, for literature, and I've always been a horror fan. But when I got back in, I was like, I don't know anything about what's going on right now. And I found you on TikTok, and you just, your taste and what you were talking about was like exactly what I was looking for. And I found almost all of my favorite authors through you.
Well, it makes me so happy to hear. I feel like TikTok especially is hard to put yourself out there. So it's good to look back and think that it helped people.
You made a
That
difference.
it had a positive impact. It's not just making silly videos.
Yeah, Adam just started talking about your podcast, Books in the Freezer, this and Books in the Freezer. I'm like, as someone who was not reading horror at that time, I'm like, am I supposed to know who that was? And
yeah, you're supposed to know.
Exactly. Like, it was just like, it's like y'all were besties before you knew it, is what I'm trying to say.
It's like, well, Stephanie told me this was good. I'm like,
Yeah.
who the fuck is that?
Yeah. Who the hell is this bitch? No. I just want you to know, Stephanie, that when I think of you at StokerCon in a back room having a dance party with you, and you just me walking in your Jersey Turnpike in it. Like, that's my visual. If I could add that graphic to my phone or my content of like when you call or when we talk, like, that's Stephanie. I was like,
Man.
Yeah, it was like a great moment. It's a great introduction to meeting you.
Man.
Genuinely. Like, that's like a genuine
impression.
compliment. Like, do I want friends that aren't doing that?
No, you don't. No, that's the type of person you need in your life, for sure. Definitely. So welcome. So we always start out, because this kind of originally started and it's evolved since then, but this was sort of a podcast between a husband and wife, one who's been a horror fan their whole life and one who was and never realized it. So we always like to hear, like, what is your history with the genre? Were you always a horror fan? Did it come to you later?
I mean, I think I definitely was since an early age. Like, I was a big Goosebumps kid. Like, I was really drawn to all the Goosebumps since early elementary school. And I remember I hung out with my boy cousins a lot, and they would put on horror movies that terrified me and scarred me. But I was also really intrigued, and I really needed to know what happened. And then kind of around middle school, my newly blended family found religious fundamentalism. So not as much horror. We still I think was always just a spooky kid at heart, and I think my family knew that. So that was the days of Netflix. Remember when you could mail in DVDs?
Yes.
So my dad would try to pick stuff for everyone, and my dad would still get old Alfred Hitchcock movies for me. He just knew I always loved the darker, macabre stuff.
I love that. And so, anyone that's familiar with your podcast will know sort of a little bit of that history that you said with the sort of religious fundamentalism. But I kind of always wondered, because I know that you were into Goosebumps, was that sort of those kinds of books you said, like Alfred Hitchcock and stuff like that. But when it came to horror, was that really not disappeared from your life for a while then?
I mean, basically, I feel like a lot of people's origin story is oh, I took a Stephen King book off my parents' bookshelf. And that was not the case for me. Stephen King, my mom thought he was a Satanist. Absolutely not.
Wait, he isn't?
He is Satan.
Yeah, he's not Satanist. He is Satan. Yeah.
I recorded an episode with Becky Spratford kind of talking about our horror journeys and the different horror we liked at different points in our lives. And during this time, I was telling her that if you were ever evangelicalism has its own pop cultures. For every secular pop culture person, there is an equal evangelical one. And there is an evangelical Stephen King.
Frank Peretti?
His name, it is Frank Peretti.
Okay. The Oath. I remember my dad. So
I haven't read The Oath. Tell me.
Really? Okay. So, This Present Darkness, right? Isn't that him too?
Yeah.
Trash. Absolute trash.
So,
I don't know.
My dad, I was a spooky kid and my parents were evangelical. And I don't know, it's one of the few things that I was like, too bad, motherfuckers, kind of thing. And I just did what I did. And so he was constantly being like, why don't you try this scary book? And it was always Frank Peretti or Left Behind.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because it's the same, same level.
Yeah.
I read House, and I feel like that was a collaboration between Frank Peretti and Ted Dekker, like the two big Christian horror guys. And I feel like the first chunk of it was really scary, but of course, like the last quarter of it is like groany, eye-rolly.
Yeah.
But it had promise.
I think, and it was one of the few smart ass things I ever did, is my dad bought me The Oath. And I said, I'll read this if you read Pet Sematary. I never had to read The Oath.
My God.
So, one of my few proud
Never read
moments.
it.
Nope. So that's funny, though. Yeah, it is funny because, I don't know, and it works with music, too, I think, with that, where it's very much like, oh, you like, this rap? You should listen to DC Talk.
You should listen to Toby Mac.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And it's just like, no, not quite. It's like, everyone says the Timu this or that, and that's pretty much.
To be fair, Toby Mac
was like the Wish version.
It is, yeah.
Toby Mac, like, if he wanted to apply his skills to, it could. I mean, it was like the close, like, it was like the, what is it, like the two-striped Adidas versus the three-striped?
Yeah. It's Adidams. That's for sure.
Yeah, okay.
It's bikey.
Yeah, it's the Payless version, like Airwalk or whatever. You're like, this needs to be cool.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it looked real close. However, when you look under the hood.
And I think with me, like, my parents didn't become very religious until I was like a preteen. So I had grown up basically fairly secular up until then. So I'm like, no, I know what like real music is like.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm sheltered and this is all I've ever had.
How disturbing was that as a preteen? Like, you're getting into like your years where coolness and all this stuff is so important in your families, and like that happens.
I mean, it was a rough transition. I'll tell you that much.
It was a rough transition, I'm sure. Like,
yeah,
at that age, you know damn well good enough, and like you've got a pretty formed personality of what you like and what you don't, and then trying to fit into a box, which I will go into a little bit of my own experience with that in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that was like quite a wild ride.
It was just such a high transition time because my parents got divorced like before then. So this is like us with our stepdad, and we're all like living as one blended family. And then like within a year we started going to this church, and that church just ended up taking like more and more, playing a bigger and bigger role in our life and dictating more and more of how we lived our life.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of times we get into like the horror therapy hour here, and this is like you say, like the books, the movies, the music. Like, I had so much tremendous guilt growing up in an evangelical household to like listen and watch anything. Like, now my parents were always like, they'd watch whatever. Like, they didn't really give a shit, even if they were going to church. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we can't watch this or you can't listen to that. It was never them who did it to me. It was always like the pastor or like the kids, or you know what I mean, just
the youth group pressure.
Yeah, just all of that. Exactly, pressure, especially that. And so I remember at one point like being like 17, 18 and like breaking all of my CDs that I had spent all this money on.
Yeah.
And just being like, it's of the devil, and I can't listen to this and I can't watch that. And at some point, like I had even like worked myself up to the point, you're gonna laugh, but like for a long time, I was even afraid of like Hocus Pocus. Like, that's how much I was like, this is sinister. This is like evil. It's like witches that are calling kids to like kill them and eat them. I was like, I don't want to pollute my temple with that, Stephanie. And I just drank the Kool-Aid, man. Like, that's just you know, and over the years, like I would ebb and flow hard in and out of that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I just always had this kind of underlying like thing for my family to be like, well, yeah, this shit's real. And like, if you invite it in and you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, if you're feeling scared or you feel like something's in your room, sleep with your Bible, you know, wear a cross. Like, so there was just enough of like, even though they weren't like, you can't watch this media or you can't do this or that, there was enough that like, I scared the shit out of me to just behave and not do it, I guess is what I mean.
Yeah.
Interspersed by, I feel like I'm like a pendulum on a giant grandfather clock. It was like either we were all into this shit, like doing everything bad and wrong and swearing and, you know, watching the whatever, or I'm so straight laced. There's no in between. And probably once you cut off all those worldly pleasures so hard, that's why you swing back so far the other way, because you've missed out on it. I don't know. Were you like that? Did you go hard then, like later on when you could?
Not really, because I went to like Fundy College and
You
like
did.
yeah, I met my husband there and we got married. So it was really kind of like us with our new family and a newborn, like, you know, here at a new church. And we just started disentangling. And then it was like 2015, and we just did not like the way they were talking about Trump. So I think that was the
Oh,
first brick to fall. And then, you know, like it was like a sweater, and once you like pulled at the thread, like everything just started to unravel. And I
okay.
was like, well, if this doesn't, like, nothing holds up.
Right. Right. Uh, that is
So no,
like,
I was like married with a baby. I didn't have my like crazy time.
okay. I just meant like, you know, with watching like and
Oh
consuming
yeah.
media or books or things like that. So, okay. So now you have this baby and you're married and you're starting to have some deconstruction in 2015. So is that when you like, do you start reading more horror books? Like, did you ever fully stop?
I actually started getting back into reading horror, I would say a little before then, 2014. Like right after we got married, I wanted to get back into reading, and I was trying to kind of even get back to like what I even liked, because it had been 4 years of college, and I was like, oh, now I have free time. Now I can read what I want. Like, what do I even like? And I remember reading like YA, because I was reading a lot of YA in high school, and that was the last time that I read for pleasure. And feeling
Oh,
like, oh, I've aged out of this a little bit. Like, I'm not
mm,
into this. Like, what do I even like? And I found BookTube, and I stumbled onto like horror BookTube, and there was a horror booktuber who had a contest, and I won. He mailed me a mass market paperback of it,
Wow.
and I read that, and that just I started reading everything. I read like House of Leaves. I read A Head Full of Ghosts. I read Gone Girl was another big one that got me into horror like as an adult,
Yeah.
or got me back into it from my
no, like that's, it sounds like you were like, okay, now I'm like exposed and I'm open and I'm going to like read some of the best like horror literature and just find out what you're really liking again then and get into it. So nowadays, like what are your, since you interview so many people for your own podcast, that's some of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I have this tremendous level of guilt that I try to like, I look today, I'm at 167 books for the year. Like I think I read a fair amount, and it's not even, it's the very end of August, and I'm like, I'm trying to read everybody and everything. Like, do you try to read every author before they come on, or like how do you go about it?
I at least try to read their latest book that they're on for and talking about. But yeah, it's just impossible. I've just kind of learned that you can't read everything you want. My end of the year reading is kind of like, I would say, in the low, like 110 for the year. So I feel like I have to be really picky, but there's always so many good new
That's
releases. And
it.
then there's so many like backlist books I feel like I
Yeah.
need to get to, and it just never ends.
I feel like that helps me feel so much better, because I feel like I'm on a treadmill and like sometimes I'm at the
Yeah.
very end, and like, you know, how it like runs the program where it's like, oh, you're going to be running up hills now. And it's like, oh, I can feel the incline going. It's like,
Yeah.
and especially like with September about to launch,
Oh
like
my God.
I'm so proud of
Everything
how,
is coming
I know,
out in September.
September 2025. Like I am so proud of how many of the books I've read
Hmm.
already that are being released for that. But I'm like, well, I mean, I've probably read like 10 or 15 of them, and There's probably 50 being released.
I think there's 10 or 15 on September 9th.
Yeah. It's just, and I love that we're in this like experience of so many good things coming out, but I'm a fast reader, but it weighs on me because I'm trying to like, not only do I want to read it all and know it all, because I never understood when people were like, oh, FOMO. Like I've never had FOMO in my life until I started reading these books and I'm like part of a Bookstagram community. And now I'm like, well, shit, I need to read this. If someone says it's good, I need to be reading this, but it's like, but it's on top of this and this and this. And, it's just always asking to add to the TBR. Like, I think I'm just unnecessarily stressed out for it.
I mean, it's hard. We're in a golden age of horror.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So what year did Books in the Freezer start?
2017.
2017. So looking back on 2017 and seeing just the sheer number of releases this year, like what do you think, like in terms of that?
Yeah.
Would you say like how much of a difference there is? Is it a good thing? Is it a great thing? Is it what do you think about this whole moment?
It's a huge difference. I remember when I started the podcast making comments about how I would love to see the day when I could walk into a chain bookstore like a Barnes and Noble and see a dedicated horror section. That was not a thing in 2017. Like people just did not care about horror at all. And when you talked about horror, people really only mentioned like a handful of names. So like there just wasn't as much visibility, there wasn't as many eyes on it, and I feel like I mean, I'm very happy that horror is having a moment right now and that a lot of these authors have, gone into the mainstream, or people that don't even consider themselves just horror readers, will read, like Rachel Harrison or Nat Cassidy.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting, as I came of age reading horror in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I talk about, and people kind of think I'm crazy sometimes. I think that to be a horror reader was almost a miserable experience in that time, because you were treated like shit. You couldn't find the books you wanted, and if you were lucky, there was a sci-fi fantasy section, and that's where most of the horror, if you just had to look through it to find it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was like Stephen King, and you're lucky. Anne Rice, Stephen King, John Saul, Dean Koontz, and that was it. Everything else you had to buy in the back of Fangoria almost.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like the Columbia Record House experience, but through Fangoria.
But like your parents judge you for it.
Well, they judged me for Columbia too.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it was really hard to find. And one of the things that's interesting when you talk about some of these authors, Grady Hendrix, a lot of people read him outside of horror, but he's also done such a wonder for these books that were so hard to find, bringing them back and talking about them.
With Valancourt. Yeah.
I just want to mention right now that Weird Al has a song that says about the Columbia Record House.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, let's join it. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm not ready for that type of a commitment, baby, even though they're married.
Yeah, back in the day, that was no joke.
When you were buying like the 1 cent. So that's cool. I never read, like, I know like when I met you, Adam, like you had subscribed to Fangoria and we looked at a lot of that stuff, but I can't really imagine how scant that must have felt for like your good things that you really wanted, and just having to just dig and find that. And Stephanie, I think like when I go into like a Barnes and Noble now, it's interesting how different. I like to visit like everyone I can go to see like the horror sections, but some of them are just so well curated, so robust. Ones where I'm like, I definitely didn't see this at this store, that or this one. And it's exciting to see how many local things are there, and then also just the breadth and depth. It's still, I feel like, so much smaller than everything else. They give like one shelf that's just like, or like one main, like, pretty much. It's not like anything of like the fantasy's got this nice nook with 2 chairs, and the YA section and whatever. It's like horror's like, you could stand in this hallway. That's all you get.
Yeah.
But hey, I'll take it.
Yes. Hey, I never had a hallway before, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
Our Barnes and Noble here is like 3 of the bookshelves, but I'm always very surprised at what's there. It's like some small press stuff. There's a lot of stuff in translation. Like, I'm always very impressed.
Yeah, it was interesting. I know you just talked with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden, but it's funny because, we live very close to where his bookstore is now.
Brian's.
But Brian's, yes. And but I subscribed to the Leisure Book Club, which was, they published all of Brian's books. And so I would get, a book every month, 1 or 2 books in the month from them. And that was sort of like, that was the indie books, back in those days. There was, self-publishing, that kind of stuff just didn't exist. So it is amazing the time we live in now.
Man, you used to get book mail that early. That's awesome. Now we get book mail regularly, and it's like the best thing. Really helps to offset those bills in the mail. At least there's something fun to look forward to.
That is.
I know. I find myself like running to the mailbox. I'm like, is there a book for me today?
Yeah, because it's like you're like, oh, I know Saga's sending us something, but what is it? It's like an unboxing of like,
yeah, I love those UPS
little mini Christmas moments.
Those UPS notifications, and it's a publisher, but you don't know what it is. Like, ooh. And then also, you pre-order things so far in advance now too that it's like, oh, I don't remember ordering that. That's so nice.
Thank myself.
Thank you,
past self. There you go.
So,
Adam, you said you wanted to ask some of the book
yeah, that's
community
what I was
drama.
going to get into.
Okay.
So
I was like, I'm just holding you accountable. Adam.
Well, I'm just saying, we're transitioning to like those kinds of things. But it was really fun, I saw you at Dark Ink and didn't get there this year at Doylestown, but Stoker, was such an interesting experience for us. And, people have said before, it's like horror camp, horror prom, all those kinds of things. You've been before, like in Pittsburgh too, right? How many Stokers have you been to?
I went in Pittsburgh, in San Diego, and then this year. So this was my third.
Okay. So, like, what is your experience at an event like that? Being with the community, being with these writers that you've enjoyed, that you've interviewed, getting to see them sort of in a different way. Like, what is your overall like feeling about events like that?
And are people starstruck to see you? Or are they like, that's Stephanie with Books in the Freezer?
Besides me.
I mean, not really. I have like a couple people come up and say that they've listened, but no. I feel like I've had very positive experiences there. And maybe because a lot of these authors I've already like spoken to on the podcast, so we already have like a relationship, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel weird. I don't know, like what was your experience? What did you think of?
Well, I think that it was one of those things where it was, when you think about summer camp, and now I never went to overnight camp, but my feeling like when I watch anything is always like the first night, the second night can be really awkward and you don't know your place and you don't know what. But by the time it gets to like Saturday and Sunday, you're like, these are my best friends and I never want to leave. And it's so weird to go back to reality and that kind of stuff. And that it was like, so it definitely had that feeling, I think that was a very valid thing to call it, because it is overwhelming. There's so much to do and see, but then by the end of it, you're like, I want this to be my reality now, where I just hang out and talk about books and with all these cool people.
I know. I feel like the come down from StokerCon is always really hard. Like I was very grumpy going back to my job, and the fact that I didn't get to hang out with my cool horror friends all day. And just go out to diners and stand outside hotel rooms and have tarot readings and do fun stuff.
I know. So
ghost hunts in cemeteries down the street.
Apparently did not, being that I wasn't reading like traditional horror books at that time so much, just like horror found in lit fic. I didn't know anybody. And so I just was like, talking to everybody as if they were just anybody, right? Sort of thing. And Adam would be like, holy shit, you're just casually talking to Johnny Compton and having a beer with him. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, Becky was like,
to be.
Yeah. Becky was like, I need volunteers. And I was like, I'm so like out of my league here. I just immediately raised my hand. I'm like, just put me to work. And I didn't realize who she was or what she said. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And then like certain people, when I was like seating them, they're like, oh, Cynthia Ply. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I know her. I know we have her books.
Yeah.
And, it was just very like, but you're right, Adam. By the third day, I was like, this is so much fun. But it was like, I felt like the newest of the newest kid at a brand new school, that I was like, I am so uncomfortable because I didn't know what to expect. It was a last minute thing for me. And I didn't, coming from like a female perspective, I did not bring a prom dress and whatever. And I wish I had, So, I mean, I just kind of like, I'll know better now. And we're signed up for the one in Pittsburgh. So I'm excited to go again. But, I feel like, the more you go, the better it gets, I'm guessing. Because I already had a
Yeah.
great time. But yeah.
Yeah, because then you have your kind of set group of friends and you're like, oh, this is our time. We all live in different parts of the country. This is our like one time of year to get
Mm-hmm.
to like see each other and hang out.
Mm-hmm. I
It must
love
be
that.
pretty sweet for you when it's in your hometown too,
That is nice.
and not in a horrifying backrooms
Not the
liminal.
liminal hotel.
I think that's gonna live in infamy for as long as the Stoker Con is there. We're gonna remember the goo in the back rooms of the Stanford Hilton
Mhm.
Hotel.
The lamp room.
So one of the things, and I think Stoker's a little bit different because Stoker is just so big, right? It's the Oscars of, horror literature and stuff like that. But when it comes to like smaller events throughout the country, and I'm not going to go into specific names or names of events, it
Why did
seems
you look at me with eyes like that, like you were scolding me?
what are you talking about?
I didn't say a word.
So I was just prefacing that I'm not going to do that. If I don't, you're like, wait, why aren't you saying this or that?
I'm not
I'm like, okay. It's
I'm not gonna I'm not trying to say anything either. We'll keep it
yeah.
super high level.
So obviously on Threads, especially, there's this huge thing about author clicks and being mean, and it was very hard to sort of understand exactly where it started from. But this idea that, especially in smaller sort of book events that, are springing around of horror authors in general, that it's like, okay, they're all being set up by the same people and the same authors are at them every time. And often those authors are 90 to 95% white men at a lot of these events and things like that. I think is where that kind of started. And horror and I probably all of literature and a lot of different things historically have been really white male dominated in terms of like who's picking what gets to be where. I think that one of the joys that I've found of horror is how diverse the voices are. And reading them has been so wonderful. I guess the question would be, of the events that you've gone to, have you ever witnessed or noticed that being sort of something that you're like, it's always the same people and they're always this type of person?
I haven't been to a lot of the smaller events, and I always feel like I'm late to all the drama. So
Yeah.
I'm always like logging in when people are like, isn't it funny?
Yeah.
This is going on. I mean, it happens. I think I've noticed it with
Things. I think that like at the end of last year, when I was watching just sort of overall horror bookstagram sort of lay out their top 10s and top 15s and 20s, I feel like male bookstagrammers as a whole, their lists were dominated by white men authors.
yeah.
And like
I
when I look at the books that come out each year, and I obviously am a white man, I'm like, how can you be reading like a wide variety or like a lot of horror books and your list end up like that? Because I just feel like almost objectively, like so much horror is being written by
By
women
female.
and
mhm.
some of the best horror. And
I
it
think
just,
so too.
to me, more than anything, like I'm almost like I feel sorry for that person. And I'm like, you're not showing what's best in the genre right now. So I feel like the genre is getting shorted.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do see that with the way that women in horror are treated. And then I feel like when I do see one of these guys reviewing a horror book by a woman, it's like, oh, this was cute or like
Mm,
this was interesting. It's very condescending in a way.
mm-hmm.
Or like it has to have its own specific like category. It can't just be considered horror. Like it has to have some other qualifier.
Yeah.
Well, with some of if you are reading diversely and you're reading all different voices, how it doesn't end up that there is such a diverse list is really hard. So it almost
Hard
feels
to
like,
understand.
Yeah.
because if you read it, there's no way that they're not going to be on a list. They're at the top. It just is, like, it's that good. So the question to me is then they must not be exposed to it, and that's either it's not being sent to them or they're not shopping for it. They're not selecting it, right? It's almost like self-perpetuating algorithm, internally sort of thing of like, that's what you're picking, that's what you're reading. But maybe that's not important to some people to read diversely. Maybe it's just they want to read the top things or whatever. And that's a shame, because some of the best books that I've read this year are from smaller, more indie authors and original creative stories. And I feel so blessed to have, I hate that word, like, there's my evangelicalism shining through. I feel so lucky or pleased to have read these, and Adam, you really helped with that, because if you weren't championing these smaller people, we wouldn't be having the discussions that we were, and you leaning into that. And so it's like, now, like, Emma was our first episode, Emma E. Murray,
Mm-hmm.
and the comments that I'm getting back from women from Shoot Me in the Face on a Beautiful Day, which
That are reading it.
that comes out
Came out
today as
today,
we're
yeah.
recording it, are like, it's fantastic, it's amazing. And it's like, they would have never read it or found it. And so it's like, thank you for stepping outside of yourself, of being a traditional white man. I mean, you probably own more female horror books than, I mean, maybe many women. I mean, you have so many. And I know you're not selecting it simply because it's women, but you have read everything and anything, with you having your master's in these degrees and whatever. And just for you to find such quality writing, and then just to be championing it all the time and showcasing these female authors, I just think that you really work hard to try to offset and make sure that there is such a spotlight on this horror being written by not just females, but in general,
Mm-hmm.
of all voices, especially, black horror writers, black writers in general.
Well, that just kind of goes into the next question that I was going to, have for you, Stephanie, because, like, you're at a point with your podcast where pretty much all the major horror authors have been on, probably want to be on, and that kind of stuff. So when you're going to say, like, this is someone that I want to talk to, how much do you factor in, someone that, you're passionate about personally, but then also bringing in voices that maybe aren't heard as much elsewhere, that might be indie, that might be smaller press, that kind of stuff. Like, does that factor into who you have on the show?
Definitely does. I definitely try to have a lot of women on when I can. I definitely need to be better about getting more smaller press people on. Um, yeah, it's definitely something I thought about. And I remember, like, when I first started the podcast, really having to think about what women I wanted to have on, and thinking about, like, the time we're in now, where there is just so many
Mm-hmm.
women in horror, truly, that it's like I don't find that I have to think about it as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
It's
not
really
having to,
like who
like,
has a book
dig.
coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, like, yeah.
No, and then also, like, so the format of your show is often you're talking to a specific author, but usually it's some sort of either read alike based on the themes of that book,
Mhm.
or it can be like a television show or different things like that. When it comes to also those, I know that even if the author itself that's on might be a traditionally published one, a lot of times both, you and whoever it is are picking a lot of, whether it's smaller press or it's an author that maybe isn't on the bestseller list. Like, do you think about that also, or are you just like, it fits it, I like it, and it just happens to be that?
I think I tend to think about that more. Like, I do
Yeah.
try to keep the recommended book lists very diverse in voices and popularity. Like, that's a
Mm-hmm.
high priority for me, that the book recommendation list that's coming out of it is very diverse.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, a lot of times on your list, because, like, we're good friends now with Jocelyn, but I, came to know her through your podcast, and I just love that you have librarians coming on, that you always have like a summer scares episode and all of
Mhm.
those kinds of things. So clearly it's, it is a passion of yours to have not just writers, but people that are in that book space, and that ultimately you're, what you're doing is trying to get people to read things, right?
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to get a horror book in your hand.
Yeah, and that's like what we love too, where it's like, and when it comes to, you said Gone Girl specifically is one that got you back into horror, and I think like a lot of people maybe wouldn't put that book in horror, but then you start talking about it and you're like, yeah, that's a horror book. You know what I mean? And so I just find that to be really interesting that you can find those sort of readers that maybe have read Gone Girl and like books like that and being able to sway them sort of a little further over. And do you notice that, and what kind of books do you generally start people off with?
I like to ask them what they're reading now and kind of try to find something that bridges that. Because, there's all kinds of horror hybrid things. There's horror sci-fi, there's
Yeah.
horror thrillers, there's horror crime. Like, what are you reading? Are you reading a lot of crime? You should read like S.A. Cosby. Like,
Yeah.
are you reading thrillers? Like, here's Riley Sager. Like,
Yeah.
there's always, I do like funny books. Here's Grady Hendrix. Here's Chuck Tingle. Like, like, what do you like? Like, there's something for you.
Here's a prescription for you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is like a very like, okay, what do you?
Yeah, no, seriously. Like right now, I'm like, oh, I've taken a little bit too much of this type of horror book this month. I need to balance it out with a little bit of this. But it's like I still want to stay in the genre because,
Mhm.
You're right. Like if I want to say, oh, I want to feel like I'm reading more thriller horror right now, like great, I need a page turn. It's like you're right. S.A. Cosby would be great to go to, but it's like, it's like, oh, I do. I want some grief horror. I want something funny. Like it's just, I said it before, but I'll say it again. It bears repeating. It's like this horror genre is like the Subway sandwich, like or Chipotle. You can go in and
Mhm.
customize your horror book really to whatever you want because there's so
Yeah.
much of, I like this, but I don't like that. Great, we have it for you. I say we as if like I've written something or that I
Like
sell
you're
anything,
the
but like,
yes, you were the
but because I
horror.
love to
Yeah.
push things on people that I
We're
love.
at the
Yeah,
Subway.
I
Okay,
can
we are
find you
making this-
something. I will force feed you this
Yeah.
book. I saw this clip the other day and I shared it of like that scene where Chris Farley comes into like the auditorium and he's just like freaking out, shaking his body everywhere and like high-fiving and slapping everyone coming down the auditorium hall. And it's like that feeling when you recommend a book to someone and they love it. And I'm like, that is exactly what it feels like to me. I could not find a better feeling.
Mhm.
Like you're just like, because it's so nerve-wracking at first. You're like, I really think this is going to be the right fit for you.
Yes. Listen, sometimes I get tagged in people's reviews of books that they picked up because of the podcast and hated. And they're like, heard about this on @Books in the Freezer.
God, what was Stephanie
Was not for me.
thinking? Oh, no.
Do you feel like that's the equivalent of someone tagging an author in a negative review? Like, why would you tag me in this?
I mean, I didn't put as much time as authors
Yeah.
put into their books, but like if there is an equivalent, that is the equivalent.
The thing is even if you find the most magnificent, wonderful book that you're like, how could anyone have criticism of this? You go to like Goodreads and there's going to be 1-star reviews. I didn't get it. I DNF'd it. I don't know what all the hype is. And like, that's fine. But for the people that do love it, like most of the time, like I feel like I'm on a good stretch right now of people being like, I really loved it. And shout out to my friend Jen, who most of the time pretty much every time I should say, I'm 10 for 10 on this. But I'm always still nervous when I recommend something to her. And she's like, I just finished it. I loved it. So now she was just like seeing some of my dystopian ones. And I saw that Anna Rose Reeds had interviewed for that Departure 37.
Oh, Scott Cart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I was like, you should check that out. And I said, or Chuck Tingle's like Lucky Day. She's like, I just bought it at the Bound Bookstore. And I'm like, oh, you're going to love it. So it's like, I'm on to my next thing that I'm pushing for her.
Yeah, Lucky Day was a good one.
It
Departure
is so good.
Is very X-Files.
Oh, did you read it?
Oh, yeah, I liked it.
I
yeah.
did.
Oh, I can't wait to
Yeah.
read it.
Mhm.
See, why are you doing this? You're
Sorry.
stressing me out.
Have you read that one? Yes.
I did, and I loved it. It's
Yeah.
funny, I just watched Final Destination Bloodlines today. And a lot
I
of
saw
it
your
feels
review.
very-
I am also not a fan of Heights, and I hadn't actually seen much about it, so I didn't realize there was some triggers for Heights in that one.
Oh,
It's the
no.
whole opening sequence, baby.
Oh, God.
I saw someone yesterday posted they were riding behind one of those log
Mhm.
trucks, and she goes, just do it. I'm ready. Just come on. I'm ready to go. Oh, I'm all here for the dark humor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun fact, my first panic attack was during the plane scene in the very first Final Destination in
Ooh.
theater, so
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it'll always carry some of my heart, literally, because I died a little while I was watching it the first time. I'm like sitting there like,
And
what's
those
happening?
theater seats are never going to be the same.
I was like, what's happening to my body right now? Why am I not okay? So, but yeah.
The
shout
Can you
out.
Final
imagine if you were on
Destination
the plane when
movies.
that when that woman was screaming and she was like, "There's someone back there. I fucking know it."
I'd just leave. Like I would just.
And she's like, "I see you."
Yeah.
You would be off. I know
I would
you
be
would.
gone. For sure.
Like
You're
you,
like, I'm
I
taking
was
her word for
one
it.
of-
I saw Final Destination. No thank
Oh
you.
yeah.
Exactly. I mean, then I got to think about though, like what would be worse, the crash or whatever's going to happen to me a week or so later after death comes flipping back around for me. So
That's true. It doesn't like to be messed with.
But you're like one of those people, like in a book or a movie, that are like, "No, I'm good," and you'll just go. Like you would never end up in rationalizing any of the stupid things.
Funny thing you say this. Okay, my favorite character in any slasher movie ever is the cameraman in Scream 3. Because if you remember this,
tell me.
So he's a black man.
Yeah.
And about halfway through the movie, he goes, "No, I know what happens this," and he leaves, and he is gone. He is done with the movie.
So smart. This is you.
And I'm like, we're watching the movie. We're like, yeah, that's what you should do.
Stephanie, do you know how often I get yelled at in public by Adam because he's like, "You're not having enough
situational awareness,"
and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I'm not." Like, these people are 5 rows over in the Target parking lot having a very difficult conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how the hell can you even hear that? And yes, but this is what happens. Like, I think these horror films have just like, you're always girding your loins.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know what can happen.
I'm serious. You're always on alert.
Yes. So, obviously Final Destination, the creators of it, it was originally supposed to be an episode of X-Files.
Yeah.
So I did want to hear, your thoughts on Departure 37 a little bit, because I did also, like, I was just reading this book, like, man, I really fucking love this.
Is there a reason you didn't share it with me if you really fucking loved it?
Yes, there is a reason.
I'll have to think about it.
I started reading something very fast afterwards and forgot to tell you.
No spoilers, friends. No spoilers.
I think we've all read Lucky Day. That, that's one of those books that chapter 2 just like slaps you right in the face, like escalates real quickly, which I love.
What other what was happening?
Was there something to do with the gorilla in chapter 2?
The whole thing, like
I know
the whole low whatever event happens.
Very event
low probability.
Yeah. The LPE.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm kind of living in an LPE right now.
I know. I feel like the past almost decade has felt like a parallel universe that we were like not supposed to be in. This was like the one where things went wrong.
I was telling Adam before we started recording tonight, I was reading So Thirsty for the first time, and I'm reading like the annotated version that Rachel did for us, and there's this part where the character is just like freaking out because she's been turned into a vampire and she like can't get over the fact that she can never go back. And she's like living like this. And I was like, kind of like, didn't have a panic attack, but kind of one of those of like, that's what I feel like right now. Like in not just like America, but like in just several aspects. And it's this kind of like trapped experience of, okay, now what? And so I like that it ends with like a happy ending. So it gives me hope. But, there's a certain adjustment period where you're just like, kind of like, okay, we got to learn a whole new lifestyle and a whole new everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, one of those things that when, you're reading a book and you find an author like Rachel Harrison that you can really, relate to and stuff like that, that brings in those things. I think that's a really special thing. And I think we all kind of have that relationship with her books, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, it definitely feels like this weird timeline that, I took a left turn.
There's another timeline where there's like versions of ourselves being shown how dark life could be, and it's us.
That's so funny. I think of like, did you ever see the Butterfly Effect, the Ashton Kutcher movie? Like, yeah, we're in the tattooed, face scarred, like version.
Somebody said, what if the stars in the skies are actually just punctured holes in a container allowing us to breathe?
They could cover it up at this point.
Yeah. What do you think, Stephanie? Do you have any opinion on the whole concept of all these women that woke up at the same time in the middle of the night after the election?
I was one of them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was like 3 a.m.
Okay, Adam's lost. He's got giant eyes. Can you fill him in?
I was like, wait, weapons happened in real life?
No, it was the night of the election because everyone went to sleep before the results were announced. And,
Yeah.
like we all went to bed with the idea that Kamala was going to win. But
Yeah.
there was like so many women woke up like between like 2 and 3 in the morning.
2 and 4, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 and 4 because they just had a bad feeling. And we all checked our phones and we're like, oh God.
Is this like, has this been talked about since that?
It's like tons and tons and tons of women. They're calling it like a phenomenon.
Yeah, but is this like just being studied now? Like,
I don't know if anyone's
I
studying
don't know.
it.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's studying it. I feel like it's
I
just
mean-
been talked about anecdotally.
Yeah,
okay.
anecdotally, yeah. But it's like we're like, okay, are we all just like
Was that the moment we slipped into the bad timeline?
this is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
This is exactly
is
like
there...
it's that show like where it's like, holy fork, this is the bad place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because they were saying like collectively the amount of women that have commented on this and have had this collective experience of like panic and just kind of waking up and your like whatever you want to say, your witchy senses, your maternal senses, your female senses of we're all about to get fucked here.
Yeah.
And that's
I know,
interesting. Whoa.
I shot up like Miss Clavel and Madeline and I was like, something is not right.
That is crazy.
See, I woke up and I like stirred and I looked at it and I was just like having the most restless sleep and
Yeah.
just like miserable. And yeah, I find that to be really fascinating. I'm sure somebody is going to study it.
Yeah.
But is that the premise of this movie, Weapons? Because I didn't know that.
Have you seen Weapons?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
I mean, the premise
It's on
is
my
that,
list.
okay, one third grade classroom.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
17 out of 18 kids woke up at 2:17 and just ran out of their house, never to be seen again. And they have them on like Ring cameras and all this kind of stuff, and they all just, you just see them running out, and then, the rest of the movie follows. And I loved it. I thought it was amazing. Our foreign exchange student that we just got from Rome, she also loved it.
I loved it.
Yes,
I really loved it. I really love horror.
It
And I was
translates.
like, holy cow, like how lucky are you that you found a horror fan?
Well, it was funny because you were off doing other things that day and woke up. And
I was at a bookstore.
You were at Barnes and Noble and woke up. We're just talking, and she's like, "Oh, I love horror movies," and I'm like, "Bet, get in the car."
Yeah. Yeah, you were like, I'm taking a nap. I was like, okay. And you're like, you know what? We're actually at the movies.
Actually, never mind.
Yeah. Do you have any books that you could align to, like Weapons, that you would say, oh, we could, similar to, I know we just said about the Chuck Tingle and the Departure 37, but like what else?
So Weapons narrative structure, Stephanie, if you think of any books that are similar to this in terms of that, it's almost Rashomon-like, where it's the same sort of events happening up to a certain point over and over from different points of view, so that by the time you get to like the real time it's starting up again, you have the perspective of all these different people in the town as to what is going on, and you realize that as something is about to happen, that these people are in much more danger than they ever thought they actually were. So it builds this tension that is really good. The only thing I can maybe say, the first thing that comes to mind is Last House on Needless Street.
Catriona Ward.
Yeah. It's sort of like the structure of like.
Oh yeah, because of the cat talks.
Well,
right?
it's like, no, I mean not specifically because that is in the book, but the structure of what you think you are watching at the beginning is something completely different than you realize you're watching or reading at the end. And that's all I'll say about that.
Sounds like a lot of relationships.
Yeah. So, and it's what?
So it sounds like a lot of female relationships with men.
Probably, yes.
What you're doing is not what you think, and you're in a lot more danger.
Yeah, but like my experience with, I know some people are, say whatever they want, but I thought Last House on Needless Street was one of the best books I've ever read. And it just blew my absolute mind. And I think this movie did the same thing.
I haven't read it yet, but now I'm intrigued. Do you have any that you would recommend, Stephanie?
I haven't watched it, so I don't.
Yeah. Or like just any kind of like book that you can think of that has like a fractured point of view, like from multiple different points of view. I'm trying to think of something else that might have that, but it doesn't come to mind immediately.
I'm scrolling through my recently.
I'm thinking even like The Stand or something, like any of those kinds of epic, sort of stories where like you're getting multiple points of view. But that's like the main one that comes like from my mind would be that. So if you like that, not that they're similar in terms of like what the actual supernatural is, but kind of has that feel.
So, what is like the plan for you as we wrap up here for Books in the Freezer throughout the rest of the year going into the new year? Is there anything really exciting on your list? Anything you're really looking forward to? Any changes?
No changes that I could think of. I'll still be doing the Patreon Fear Street series, which
Nice.
Adam was on.
Yes, he was. Yep. And
Number
he said,
4,
isn't he coming back again for a second time?
We can.
I thought he said something like that, but maybe I misheard him. But no, I mean, I listened to that with, sorry about that.
I have 2 cats. I get it.
Yeah, they're like children that when we're recording, like, of course, right? Like, you just have to misbehave like that. So that's our producer, Dewey, who just clearly is not listening to his own rules. Okay, Dewey. Hold on, Dewey's losing it. He needs to be kicked out. He was interrupting my last question anyway, so we're gonna have to edit. Yeah. Okay, so
it's fine. It gives me time to think.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, so basically there's no changes planned for Books in the Freezer coming up, but is there anything exciting or interviews you're looking forward to in the near or the further future?
Yeah, I have episodes coming out with Becky Spratford about her Why I Love Horror essay collection from various horror authors. And in that, I think I mentioned earlier, but
yes, okay.
We talk about our horror journeys, kind of like childhood. This is the book we pick, like preteen years. This is the book we pick, teen years.
Love.
So that was fun to do. And then I recorded an episode with Brian McCauley, who I know you guys had on, about desert horror. And
I saw that sandstorm. That was
me too.
Holy shit!
Isn't it called like a haboob?
I mean, I think that they call that, but that was crazy. That'll be very cool.
Yeah. So has anyone ever asked you what your final girl song is?
I've said some on episodes. I go between 2, but I think it would be Dream Girl Evil by Florence and the Machine.
Florence, her new album, right? Oh my god.
My god, it's needed on Halloween with the red dress and the screaming. It's feral.
Yeah.
And then if I'm like fighting people off, it's Rage by Rico Nasty.
Oh man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Adam, if you were a final girl, since your daughter the other day, Adam's like, I don't like a lot of men, like they're, because they're like they're like very bro like, and I think what you're really saying is you don't like a lot of like alpha conservative men, whatever, right? It's like it's a certain type of male that you have no tolerance for. So you're like you tend to identify and really enjoy speaking to women more. And so I think at some point I said something like, okay, you're just like an emotional lesbian or something. And Annabelle heard that. And so the other day on the phone, you said some comment and she says right in front of our exchange unit, my dad is just such a lesbian. And so like now it's known. So what's your final girl lesbian song?
I mean, my final girl song.
Your right emotional lesbian final girl man-hating song.
Well, I would say that my recent obsession has been the band Gossip.
Yeah.
And I would say Standing in the Way of Control by Gossip would be a really good final girl song, I think. What about you?
Honestly, it's probably inappropriate, but the first thing that comes to my head was the Celine Dion, It's All Coming Back to Me Now. Because I'm thinking like at one point I remember who the fuck I am and I just start fighting. And I'm just like, there were all moments or whatever, and it just gets really dramatic. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to fucking kill everything.
That's so funny. I think about like certain movies where like the song like juxtaposes well, like,
I could see it like comedic, it's slow motion and you're just like slicing people up. Celine Dion plays in the background.
Especially like if she's killing like a boyfriend or something. It's like there was moments of gold and there were flashes of light. Like I just see it in my head.
It's always the boyfriend if it's a Scream movie,
Yeah, well, this is what I'm going with. So let's add it to our playlist here. Thank you for supporting me, Stephanie, because Adam side-eyed me so hard. Bombastic side-eyed me. Like, what's wrong with you? I just feel like I embarrass you all the time.
No.
I love that after 20 years, like, what the fuck is she going to say right now?
Like, I could see your face and you were dead set on something. And I'm like, oh God, what's it going to be? When you said not appropriate, I was definitely thinking like, you know,
You
Doodoo
and
Brown or
me,
something.
baby.
Like,
But man, that's awkward.
Discovery. I'm like, it's going to be something weird like that. But no, it went even weirder in a different way than I expected. Love it.
Thanks for being on. We celebrate you. We love listening to what you do. We love your work in the community and the artistry. And if we do not see you before the next StokerCon, which I hope we do, we look forward to having another dance party with you.
Yeah. We'll meet in the liminal twerking space.
And maybe even some karaoke.
That's a good band name, Liminal Twerking Space.
Write it up.
Yeah, write that
Somebody
down.
needs to put it in their character.
All right.
Okay, thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.